Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Obviously, there's still a few more folks that are going to join our session. We'll have this recorded, so they'll be able to review this later on, as well for those who were not able to join. So to get started, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Christian Labrador. I'm the Director of Client Services. And alongside me, I have Ian Iwana, who's the Director of Product. Today, we have our office hours session, and we felt that this was a good opportunity, considering the topic that we're sharing with you, to invite as many customers as possible to talk about the recent tax ruling changes. So the concept of our session today, we'll have an agenda showing shortly, but we wanted to make sure that we had brought in as many people as possible to review this. Given the number of people that are actually participating today, we are choosing not to have the mics on for everyone to kind of ask their questions out loud, just because of the sheer volume of folks, and not creating any kind of situations where folks are speaking over each other. So we're going to utilize the questions panel, and you'll be able to ask questions there, certainly throughout the session, but we'll have periods where we'll be checking that questions panel and try to answer those questions as they come up. Certain things, of course, we'll probably have to do offline, but we'll do as good of a job as possible to get those answers to your questions. So today's agenda, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be talking about the recent tax ruling, the challenges that it poses, what we're thinking of doing within M.O.M, the level of effort that we'll be undertaking, and what will happen across a series of phases. And at the end of that, we'll have a proper Q&A session. But of course, as things pop up during the meeting, we'll try to answer those as we can. So without further ado, I am going to pass it on to Ian Iwana so he can go ahead and talk about these tax ruling changes.
Thanks, Chris. So on June 21st of 2018, the Supreme Court ruled in favor for South Dakota versus Wayfair, which pretty much decided that the physical presence or sales tax nexus is no longer required to collect state sales tax. What the ruling did for South Dakota was it allowed them to enforce where a seller or online seller who make gross sales over 100,000 or 200 individual transaction in that state is required to remit tax in that particular state. So that's the ruling. Now that has an impact on the rest of the states. Since Congress has not stepped in yet, a lot of states are following suit, and a lot of these states are creating their own economic nexus where they're creating their different thresholds for gross sales and transaction. So economic nexus is the threshold that it's set by each state. Now, the thresholds that are currently out now is gross sales can range from 10,000 to 500,000. Transactions can range from none or up to 200. And a lot of these economic nexuses are actually effective since early 2017, and some of them are going to go live up to early 2019. And now is that we want to make sure that the merchants now, or online merchants, are able to kind of start figuring out what they need to do to get ready to comply for the economic nexus that each of the states are coming out. Now, not all states have come out with their economic nexus yet, so that's something you need to look out for. In this particular deck, I have a link from QuickBooks where it shows their current statuses. Those things you can find a list online, or you can talk to your tax expert or accountants where they can give you a list, or you can also check your state website on what the current ruling is as far as economic nexus goes. So that's something you have to keep an eye on, so that way you can see if your particular business meets those different thresholds from each state. So the challenges that we see in complying for each of those economic nexus is, again, identifying which state actually you need to collect sales tax in. Then you'll be required to then update all the sales tax rates from the state level, county, the zip, and in some cases districts. And then obviously there's the challenge of reporting and filing those for each state that tax is collected. And again, like I said before, that we have to keep up to date on all the tax requirements. So again, not all of them are out, so that's something that's changing daily. So that's something we have to keep an eye on. And as we hear stuff, we can pass that on to us, to you guys. So with that said, the current options that you have in M.O.M, obviously we have a sales tax table. We have the national, state, city, and zip levels. We don't have the districts. You can actually manually update those sales tax table. So you can manually update it. Again, that's a challenge because if you meet those thresholds on 2 or 3 different states, that could be a lot of manual work, and then you're required to update that on a monthly basis to make sure that the rates are accurate. The other option is for M.O.M 8 clients or higher. We do have an API plugin where we allow you to export the tax rates in our layout. So you can export anything that has a rate, and you export it, and you can import it back in with new rates. So you could use that plugin. You can leverage that. That's available now. We also have a plugin on the API side for a flat file from Avalara. Now, this is an older integration that we had, so the layout is older, so that's something we need to kind of get out to make sure that still is working. So my team is looking into that now. We're getting some sample files from Avalara so that we can test that out. So before I go into phase 1, any questions on the current ruling, economic nexus? If you have any questions, you can post them now. And now I'll take some of the questions, and now I'll go into I'm going to go into showing what we're planning to do with phase 1 in M.O.M.
Can everybody hear us? We're seeing a couple of comments in the chat that folks can't hear us or they've lost connection. Is that true for all, or is this isolated to a couple of folks?
So we have a question here from Todd asking about what if you prefer Veritex instead of Avalara. For if you're doing it manually in M.O.M, I mean, I'm not familiar with the Veritex, but they provide the a tax rate or a flat table. We could import that into the system. Avalara is the one that we had a flat file layout that we actually mapped to our system standard, but again, we have the import there that you can actually conform to the M.O.M layout, and you can bring that tax rate in if you're using a different source. we have a question regarding documentations for the API. Also, if you take our API and you install it, once you install it, it actually creates a M.O.M SDK folder on the local folder. You can go to that M.O.M SDK and go to the plugin section, and there's also the plugins that we can actually do the sales patch. If you need the documentation, we also have that on our knowledge base. So if you search market fairness in the knowledge base, you should get some hits on the API and how to use that. Just want to apologize ahead of time. There's a lot of questions coming in, and some of the conversation might be choppy because we're skimming through all of the questions that's coming in. So just bear with us here. We'll take 2 more questions, and then we'll move on to the next section of the presentation.
We did get a question. Presuming we only need to be concerned with a single tax rate per state for now, why would an API be needed instead of doing manual entry for 50 state records?
Right now there's only actually 45 states that collect tax, plus the District of Columbia, that's 46. But each state has a breakdown of county and zip, so that's really hard to kind of keep up with. And you're also updating that on a monthly basis, depending if the tax rate changes. So if it's on the state level, that wouldn't be too difficult, but each state will have a breakdown for county and city, and I guess in some cases district. So again, it's really difficult.
I think what we're going to do right now is we're going to move on through the presentation, and we'll circle back to the questions. Meanwhile, I'll monitor some of the questions that are going to pop up, and if we can answer them via the chat, we'll do so. Otherwise, we'll circle back to the questions towards the end of the presentation. There's a lot of good questions, but every time we're reading through them, we're just kind of breaking up the presentation a little bit too much.
So moving on to the presentation, what we're thinking about in M.O.M, what we're doing is going to be doing it in phases. Obviously, some of the concerns that our merchants have is to start collecting tax now, because, like, again, some of the effective dates go back to 2017. So we want to make sure that we don't have that exposure when we start collecting tax on states that we're supposed to be collecting tax on. So what we're doing with phase 1 is giving you that, answering that concern. So what we did is we have created a Nexus threshold report, which will report all the total gross sales that you have in M.O.M and the number of transactions per state. So you'll be able to run a date range, and you can sort that by a state, gross, or transactions, and you can see a list of all the information, and then we would then ask you to look at all the current state economic nexus and see which states you qualify. And at that point, once you know which state you need to collect nexus on or taxes, what we added is a tax import rate feature, which is a UI now within the M.O.M system, where what we're doing is we're actually subscribing to a service that will give us the flat file for the whole United States, or the whole 45 or 46 states that are collecting tax, and we're actually putting that into M.O.M so that what all the client needs to do is actually go into M.O.M. Once they run the report for the threshold, and then they figure out which state they need to collect tax on, and then pick the state, and then our system will update that state with all the state, county, and zip levels, and the special rates which we kind of combine on the zip level. So again, we're also planning to update that monthly based on the subscription that we have. So basically, moving forward in phase 1, you're going to be able to find out which state you need to collect tax on, and then obviously put the proper tax rate in the M.O.M system. So kind of making that easier for you guys. So the other part of this is how will this impact my website? So if you have a site link, all you need to do is publish the taxes from M.O.M to site link, and then site link will do the same calculation. If you do have a third-party website, you would be required to update those rates on that particular site, or sign up with a particular service that calculates the tax rate. And then what we do is we have a flag on our M.O.M import to bring those rates down into M.O.M. That way we don't recalculate the tax again. So for this particular phase 1, we are going to be releasing this for all our current supported versions. That's 10, 9, and 8. We are expecting to release this at the end of September 2018. So now I'm going to actually bring up the M.O.M system and give you guys a preview of what those 2 features look like in the system. So like I said, what we did so far, and this is not final, we're still kind of redesigning the report, but we added a new report under the accounts receivable, and pretty much what we did is we put a date range. So typically the requirement for most of the states is you look back 12 months, so it's a rolling 12 months that you need to kind of visit and check out. So you can see here, we defaulted to 1 year ago, and then if that's not the date you want, you can actually change that. And then here we give you an option to actually sort by. So I want to do my total sales. I'm going to process this. And you can see you get a report like this where you can review all the states that you collected tax on, what was taxable sales, how many transactions. So if we take New Jersey for a second, New Jersey's rule is 100,000 or 200 digital transaction. If I knew that, I would clearly see that I don't actually qualify for those economic nexuses. I don't necessarily have to register and remit tax to New Jersey. But if you do, this report will help you find all those different states that you qualify for. Again, once you qualify for a particular state, what you do is you make note of the different state you qualify for, and then we're going to actually run the sales tax import under here. So under accounting, we now have an import sales tax or remove sales tax. So depending, if you use to remove it or add to it, depending on your reporting. So I'm going to go to here. I can choose California and add that. I can hit process, and this will actually go to my tax table in M.O.M and update all the California rates that's going to the states, the counties, and districts. So that way, when you actually collect tax in California, it has all the proper rates that it had from the subscription file that we get from a source. So we'll let this finish, and once this is completed, we'll look at the tax table for California, and you can see how it's been updated. So we have a couple questions regarding the report. Again, this is our first shot at the report. Again, the more feedback that you guys have here, it's perfect. We can actually add those, take those feedback, and then see if we can add them to the report and see to make that improve that report itself. So there's one where we taxable and exempt. So we definitely look into that. So once it's updated here, you can see I can go back to my account, check out my sales tax table, go to the United States, I go to California here, and you can see it has the 6%, it has the breakdown of the county, and it has a breakdown for the city or zip. So there's a couple questions here regarding some of the calculation might not be with the zip code, so some of the calculation does happen in a district, and as you all know, M.O.M only goes to the zip code level. So phase one, so if you serve those certain zip codes where it has multiple districts, there's slight risk there that it might not calculate the proper tax. However, what we're trying to address in phase one is just to make sure that we start collecting tax. What we're doing in phase two will address some of those concerns. Just go back to some of the concerns about if you're calculating tax that has on the actual street level. So, in phase two, what we're actually looking at is to integrate with a third-party tax service. We're looking at currently at Avalara, TaxJar. If you have a particular service that you're currently looking at, please share that in the questions panel. We can definitely check out those. Obviously, what we want to do is see which one is the most popular. That way, we can start work on those. Again, the one we're kind of looking at is Avalara and TaxJar. So what they will give us is, again, to address the calculation where on the district level, we can actually send a real-time calculation for tax. So what we're doing is on the order entry and the M.O.M side, we're going to be able to calculate tax in real time. So what we're doing is we're actually adding a button there so you can calculate tax. Now the reason we're adding that button is because a lot of these services is going to charge you by transaction. And what we want to do is limit that number of transactions that you request to calculate tax. So typically M.O.M will calculate tax every time you change a line item or change a shipping method or add a line item. It needs to calculate that tax. What we're doing is we're kind of altering that workflow a little bit so that it doesn't inflate your transaction for requesting tax. So what we did is we're going to be adding a button there. We're also looking into calculating tax upon import of orders. So as you import orders, we can calculate the tax. That way you don't have to open that orders again. However, if you have a website, which I'll cover in a second, we'll handle it differently. So the other benefit of working with a third-party service is obviously the filing. Now, in M.O.M, actually you could get the rates there and calculate the rates, but then filing to multiple states is going to be a challenge. So what we're thinking is what we'll do with the third-party service is we're actually going to send order transaction when the order is invoiced in M.O.M. And with that, we're also adding an option for our clients to actually go back to an invoice date range that they can also send to over to the tax service for filing. So it gives you guys a chance just in case, maybe we come out of this module by November, mid-November, things like that. You can still, report fourth quarter sales, go back to the beginning of the quarter and send that over, and you can file that with the tax service. So how does phase two impact your website? With SiteLink, we're planning to get a direct call to the tax service to calculate real time, and then obviously bring that into the M.O.M system. Now, if you have a third-party website, it's the same thing. You upload update the tax on the site, or you can subscribe to a particular tax service and calculate tax real time, and then what we'll do is we'll bring those taxes in M.O.M as is. For phase two, we're looking to release this for version 10. And again, target release for this is mid to late Q4 of this year. So that's the presentation. So we'll start kind of going through the questions here. There is a lot of questions here. Chris and Sean here is going to help me go through the questions, and we'll sort through them and answer them just as we can. We have a question here, will phase 2 be done in 8 and 9? The answer is going to be no on that. But again, phase 1 is going to be available for 8 and 9.
And what if the company's tax exempt?
So we have a question here regarding identify taxable versus non-taxable item on different states. So in M.O.M, we have different tax classes, so you could employ the tax classes, so that way you can set up tax class A, and then you would have to go to the sales tax tables to kind of indicate which one's taxable and which one's not by state. However, if you go to the phase 2 part of it, that's all be taken care on the tax service side. Well, another question here about will we be able to download the tax rate on a monthly basis so that we can upload to our third-party website? The answer is no. What we do is it's in the M.O.M EXE itself. So what you would need is a program update monthly if you want to update the tax, and you would go to the process where I previewed California. You could pick California and then choose that and then update that. So on a monthly basis, if there are any changes, you would take a program update and then update the taxes that way.
All right, we have a question. Will you get rates at the county, city level, or just at the state level?
The current import tax feature will get all three: state, county, and zip. Again, that's the three levels that we support in M.O.M right now. For the report, yes, I believe it's taking. Did you read the question? Sorry.
Sure, yeah. The question is from Anissa, just asking if it's taking returns into consideration.
Yeah, we're considering that on the threshold report, Nexus threshold report, the returns, and also if you have multiple invoices, that's actually just one transaction. So we're taking that into account to make sure that we're doing that correctly. But if you have other feedback on that, Anissa, we can discuss that further, see if we were doing it right. But right now, we are taking returns and multiple invoices for one order in consideration.
We have a question here. Every state has different items that are taxable. How do we know if bread, for example, is taxable or not?
So it goes back to consulting with your accountant if it's taxable, but if you know if it's taxable in one state and not in the other, what we do offer in phase 1 is that you can use tax classes. Now, if you are in M.O.M 10 and you opt up to phase 2, you can actually just set those products on the tax service side, so that way they have product categories where if it's taxable or not taxable based on different states. So then the tax calculation happens there. It just feeds us back the actual value of the tax, and then we'll store that into M.O.M.
So the next question that we see here is, for the API plugin for M.O.M, layout.
Adjust the different rates you want to change, and then you can import that same data file back into the system to update the taxes. So a follow-up question on that API plugin. So if you are doing it via manually or via the API plugin that's currently available in M.O.M now, you would be responsible for getting that data set from a source. So there'll be services out there that offers flat files, like I think Avalara offers flat files. There's a couple of services out there. So you'd be taking a flat file, taking that format and making it match the M.O.M format, and then bringing it into the system to update the tax rates.
So why isn't the tax rate information just built into M.O.M? Why the need for an API?
So the tax rate in M.O.M, again, we mentioned that it's up to 4 levels, right? We have the national, state, county, and city. And again, like someone pointed out in the question panel here, I think it's California, it doesn't necessarily calculate by zip. So there's risk levels when you calculate tax by zip level. So if you have multiple districts in that zip, it might not calculate accurately. So the need for the API is to make sure that we can calculate the tax as accurate as possible. So that what we're doing is we're sending all that, if the product information, order information over to a service that can actually do that on the district level and bring that back down to M.O.M, the accurate tax calculation. So again, phase 1, there is some risk there, or if you have cities with multiple districts or districts with different tax rates. So that's why we would need that API service on phase 2, so that makes sure that we have the proper rate, most accurate one from the service itself.
So the next question is, tax districts don't always bound on zip codes and the ability to get the true tax. How will you handle different product types, different taxability of shipping? Some states it is, and in some it isn't.
And so in M.O.M, again, for the different product types, we've got different tax classes that can accommodate for that. But for the different districts, like I said before, since M.O.M only goes to the zip code level, it can't do that. So it might be a risk there that it could calculate tax incorrectly. What we're doing is we're actually just combining the rates, the special rates, and the zip. What I'm saying, for those cases, the best route is really when we get phase 2 out, because we're actually sending that information over to our tax service, which can handle those types of calculation, the product types and the districts.
So another question here is, are you saying we need to start collecting taxes now on all states that require it?
Yes, if you follow the different, again, like I mentioned before, there's a list out there that tells you economic nexus for each state. So if you do meet those thresholds, you have to then look at the effective date. So if the effective date is passed, then yes, you would have to start collecting taxes in those days.
All right, this is a question from Tom. If phase 2 does not calculate sales tax until order import from SiteLink, will SiteLink customer not know how much sales tax they are paying until they place their order?
No, like I said, on the selling side, we would be directly connecting to the tax service from that point. So we'll be calling a service. So the tax calculation will be happening in real time when the order is placed with a customer. And then what we do is we'll import that back into the M.O.M system.
So this is about sales tax in terms of shipping costs. Some states can for shipping taxable, some don't. How will M.O.M handle that?
A lot of the, on the phase 1, the files that we get actually includes if the shipping is taxable or not. So once you actually do the sales tax import feature, it will actually check it for you. So that way it's taxable. And then on phase 2, obviously the tax service will handle that because they'll have all the rules as well.
Another question that came up, there is nothing actually that says you are required to collect tax. The Supreme Court ruled on a specific issue and did not set the law vis-a-vis thresholds, etc. They simply said that South Dakota had a reasonable approach.
I would definitely ask you to consult your accountant or a tax expert, but from my research here, it really points to, since the Congress has not stepped in yet, a lot of states are following suit to what South Dakota is doing and establishing their own economic nexus and requiring online sellers to collect tax if they meet those thresholds. So that's what's happening there.
If in phase 2 you're working with Avalara, see if you can get M.O.M users some kind of better pricing for the group if possible.
Yeah, we're currently working with their some of their business partners departments, so we are talking to them, and we're working for you to make sure that we get the best rates and such. Oh, so there was a question here. If the tax is retroactive. Some, for South Dakota is not, I think, but for some states it is retroactive. Some of them, like I said in my research here, some of them effective date is actually before the court ruling in 2017. So they could technically go back to 2017 and see if you meet that economic nexus that they've set.
Here's a question that looks more like it will be a phase 2 thing, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. At least one state breaks down to the ZIP 4 level. Is M.O.M able to accommodate taxation at the ZIP 4 level?
Again, the answer would be no. And it's across multiple districts. In phase 1 and the current setup with M.O.M will not be able to handle that. So there is a risk of an inaccurate tax calculation. But in phase 2, when we send that over to the actual tax service, they'll be able to give us a real-time tax calculation on that street level and give us the accurate tax for that.
Folks, there's about another 15 minutes left in our session. There are still a lot of questions coming through, so we're just trying to review some of these so it'd be relevant to everyone in the session, so just bear with us.
How do we know at the beginning of the year if we should collect sales tax in a certain state if we don't know how many sales we'll do in that year and if we'll ever be over the threshold?
A lot of the states actually look at the last 12 months, the previous year. So you have to look at, typically it's a rolling 12 months that you need to look back and see if you actually qualify for those thresholds.
And then Tom just wants, once again, a target dates for each phase once again.
Sure. For phase 1, we're targeting end of September, and for phase 2, towards the mid to late Q4. And I think those are not finalized yet. Again, I'll be, for the Software for Life clients, I'll be hosting more of a focus group, getting more feedback on how we can improve that. Obviously, this is our first run of design. Obviously, I would like to get more feedback from the client community so that we can improve it and make sure that we address all the concerns and features that's needed.
So another question that came up, please correct me if I'm wrong, but will in no way affect the online sales from Amazon, Miva, and other channels. These would have to be done on the channel-by-channel basis.
That's correct. I mean, what's happening there is that a lot of states are also enacting what they call a marketplace facilitator. So Amazon's actually doing it already. What they're doing is for Washington and Pennsylvania and soon Oklahoma, that's supposed to be July 1st, but I don't know if they actually start doing that. But what they're doing is they're actually collecting tax on behalf of the third-party seller. So Amazon's doing it already. Walmart's doing it. I think eBay's going to follow suit. So a lot of the big platforms are doing it. So what's going to happen is that for you, if you meet those thresholds in any of those platforms, you're going to be required to collect sales tax for that particular state. So if you meet it on Amazon and if you have a Shopify or Magento, you're going to have to collect for both platforms or all the platforms that you have for that particular state. So the report that you guys saw today was just a simple threshold report, and what we're planning to do is, again, a lot of the economic nexus are still changing, so we're trying to find a source where it's consistently updated, and what we could potentially do with M.O.M is post that into M.O.M so that way we can actually integrate that in M.O.M and put the threshold, and instead of just saying this is the report, we can actually tell you which state you actually qualify or meet the threshold. That way it's pretty easy. So that's still in the works as far as the phases on the reports, but that's something we're thinking about because obviously we want to make it easy as possible for you guys.
Okay, we have another one here. CV3 has an integration now with Avalara. It would be nice not to have to use TextJar for phone orders being added to M.O.M.
Use one or the other. I wouldn't use both because then you're paying for two services. We are looking in Avalara. So if we go with Avalara, then you can have CV3 and then come down to M.O.M and still be Avalara packaging real time. But again, what we're looking for, the group here, is going to give us feedback on which makes sense for you guys. Is it Avalara? Is it TaxJar? Or is there other services out there that we didn't look at? I know Denise had went out Streamline Tax, I think it was called. So we'll look at those and see. But really, what we want to do is address the majority of you guys. Which one makes the most sense. So that's what I'm looking for feedback here. So again, if you guys can add that to the questions here, we can collect that and we can compile that on our side.
Is Nexus delivered at the state level?
Yeah, I mean, economic nexus is defined on the state level, and then within each state, once you qualify for that, then they have the breakdowns for counties and cities and districts.
You definitely do need to support 2+ providers. Avalara, TaxJar are good. I personally loathe TaxCom, not a fan of their tactics. Avalara, TaxJar seem to be the best of the 6.
So, yeah, I mean, we're definitely looking at both of them. Again, which one we take on first is really going to be driven by your feedback. So the more feedback we get, it gives us the proper direction on which integration we should take on first. So again, the more feedback for us, the better visibility on chances on which integration we're going to be doing for you guys.
So I think we have to realize this could all change and just have flat tax for all states. At least we're hoping. I think that's a good way to sum it up, Anissa.
Yeah, I mean, we are, we're hoping that at some point Congress steps in and, make some of these rules much easier. But until then, each state is now starting to define their own economic nexus. I mean, yes, it would be nice to have a national flat rate. It'd be easy to kind of maintain. So this would all pretty much go away. But until that happens, we have to keep on top of this to make sure that we collect the proper tax and charging proper tax to our customers. And again, I thought also Congress is looking, we want Congress to maybe do the delayed implementation or maybe look into redefining what small business is, because, it really does affect the smaller merchants, because obviously it requires more services to kind of comply to this new economic nexuses out there for each state.
Because you've done the research on all of the states and retroactivity, can you create a white paper with the details of that information, including thresholds, and share that with all of your users?
A lot of these tax services actually have on their blog. So if you visit TaxJar or Avalara, even QuickBooks has a list where you can check it out and actually see what each state is doing, what the threshold is for sales, gross sales and transaction, when the effective date is. So I've shared some of the links there, but yeah, I can definitely share them. But it's really, we can't make a white paper because those things change daily. So it's really up to keep it up to date with the best thing is looking at the state website, what's most up to date information on what's going on with the economic nexus and rulings for that.
I also want to make sure that everyone is clear on this one item. Obviously, we're all talking about tax and how it impacts us, and we all do business in different states and within our state and different products and different rules. To be fair, we're not providing you any advice in terms of how you need to operate your tax collection process. We are simply recognizing that there's been changes and there are more changes coming down the pike. So we're not giving any kind of tax advice at this point. You know, we're talking about what the system can do, what we're envisioning the system is going to be able to do, and of course that's somewhat of a moving target given that you know, there's going to be a lot of changes that we foresee happening over the next few months and probably over the next few years with all the tax codes. So you know, you should still be talking to your make sure that you're still capturing all of that, and when in doubt, give us a call or send us an email, and we'll let you know how those things need to be reflected in the phases that we're trying to implement, as Ian described earlier. So unless anyone else has any question on a topic that hasn't been covered regarding these tax changes, what we're going to do, obviously, as we've done with past webinars and do these types of sessions, we will have those questions sent out to you with answers. The recording will be made available to you as well. There are some questions that probably need to be answered offline, and we'll do. We'll reach out to you as quickly as possible on those. I think we've covered, at least at a very high level, what our goals are. We recognize the importance and the relevance of these changes, and we know that this has a huge impact on you, and you need to know how to handle it, especially with Mom. So, you know, we will definitely be in touch, and if you have any follow-up questions or concerns, you know how to reach both Ian and myself. And also, you can direct those emails to the mom support at freestylesolutions.com mailbox, and I'll be on the lookout.
Right. Again, thanks everybody for tuning into our webinar. Again, there's a lot to take in. This is not the final word on what's going on with the tax. Just want to give you an update on how we're doing, where we stand as far as what we're planning on the M.O.M side. We did that today and answered most of the questions regarding the tax and what's changing out there regarding the economic nexuses that's coming out for each state. So again, urge you to kind of talk to your tax experts or accountant. Go do some research online where they have the listing of the different nexuses, and also the market facilitators and things like that. There's different programs that you can check out. So again, talk to your tax experts and accountants to make sure that what's the best course of action. What we're doing on the M.O.M side is just to make sure that we can accommodate some of those concerns and address them in our software as far as getting the tax rates in there, and then obviously updating them on a monthly basis, and then obviously filing them for you as well. So we're trying our best here to make it easy for you guys to kind of comply with this recent change. Again, thank you everybody, and everybody have a nice day.